We're back. After an exciting first season, Top Tech Voices returns with fresh perspectives, deeper conversations, and even more inspiring voices from across the industry. This time, we're diving into how technology actually serves people. Because innovation has the greatest value when it improves lives, protects what matters, and solves real human challenges, right? Whether you're tuning in from your desk, your lab, or on the go, we're bringing thought-provoking insights, expert interviews, and behind-the-scenes stories that matter. So let's get into the latest season of discovery, dialogue, and inspiration. Our first guest is a neuroscientist, former Olympic psychologist, and an author who's renowned for her work on habit formation and wellness. A pioneer of the biohacking movement, she uses science-backed evidence to optimize for health and longevity. The founder of a health tech startup, Healthspan, she's known by her clients as Dr. Rock because of her innovative and pioneering use of music and sound as therapeutic tools. Please welcome Dr. Julia Jones. So I hear you're in an all-female rock band.
This is true. I am in an all-female rock band called Pretty Crap. It was an accident, but an excellent accident, because I was doing a talk and someone in the audience, this was a talk where I live, and someone in the audience came up afterwards because I had mentioned that I was having lead guitar lessons as part of a brain health exercise, and I wanted to learn to play electric guitar like Jimi Hendrix, which turns out is very hard. So she was learning bass guitar. She's in her mid-40s learning bass guitar, and someone else that she had met in the same town is in her 60s learning drums. And so she said, why don't we book a rehearsal studio, go in and have a jam? And so we did. And we had such an epic time. We then placed an advert on Facebook searching for a female lead singer, and this 22-year-old blonde bombshell called Roxy came along for an audition. And we became Pretty Crap, and that was 3 years ago, and we do tons of gigs. We're locally infamous.
Cool.
And having a lot of fun, yeah, and it's good for your health.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We laugh about it, but how is being in an all-female rock band improving your health?
Well, it's become like an unbelievable family, for starters. So the social bonding element of it is on a whole other level. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that. It's you know, we've all also been through a lot of various life traumas over the last 3 years as well that were all unexpected, with health and finance and relationships, and so that there's that aspect of it, but also the act of performing and the act of learning those instruments and building those brain connections and increasing your kind of positive cognitive reserve by creating these new neural pathways has benefits. Obviously, that is all true as long as you don't then add 10 pints of lager into the mix. So we none of us drink to that level. We do drink, but we don't drink to that level. And when you're on stage, you don't have time to drink, right?
Yeah.
Because you're busy, your hands are occupied, and it's just a lot of fun. And I think that the whole movement, I've been in this field looking at music as a kind of a biohack for performance and health for over 30 years. And the transformation in the last 10 years of how it's now recognized, still not sufficiently recognized. I still get people every day saying, gosh, it's incredible. My mum's got dementia, and I put some music on, and it was amazing. It's like, oh my God, like how do people not know about this yet? That the way that music can really come in as a part of the toolkit to, especially in, if living with dementia, but for other uses as well. I'm kind of in the echo chamber of it. So I'm like, why doesn't everyone know this already? But there's been a lot of ramping up of that social profile of music as an asset, which is good because we've been fighting it music getting shut down in schools, music venues getting shut down, positioned as noise, all of that, very forgetting that music is a very important part of our human DNA. We are naturally musical. The oldest instruments that have been found are 40,000 years old, and we would have been using body percussion way before we invented a flute.
Mm.
So, I'm a big fan of music.
Yeah, because you've been exploring the intersection of like using music as a biohack tool for quite a while, as you mentioned. Did it begin with a visit to a Navy SEAL base, right?
It did. That is, yes, that is true. So, again, an accident. The best things often are accidents. I was doing a sports science degree in Cardiff, and I got the opportunity to go on a student exchange to Los Angeles. And who wouldn't pick that? I got to go to sunny LA, and the Californians got to go to significantly less sunny, often more rainy Cardiff. And while I was in California, I got the chance through a friend of a friend to go onto the US Navy SEALs base in San Diego. And while there, I met the physical training instructors, and I was DJing at university, and I was singing in a little band there, and so I was really into music, and we got talking about music, and they were saying, "Oh, we use music a lot," and they started explaining. Some of it's obvious. We know, ah, da, 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 da,
Uh-huh.
they use music in that way to boost physical endurance, but they were also using it as a metronome for breathing exercises to reduce anxiety. They were using it as a confidence builder. They were, big surges of energy and stuff. It was really fascinating. And I was in my early 20s, and I graduated, and then came back, did my master's degree looking at the effects of music on physical endurance, which then got published in the academic journals, which resulted in me working with the Olympic squads, introducing music as a biohack to the British swimming squads, which now you see is standard practice. You see them wearing their headphones right up to the minute they're going into the pool now, because the ears lead to the brain. It's a very powerful input channel.
Can we use music to change our moods then, do you think, as well as perform better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's decades of evidence of how, if you think of music as sound, and but ultimately the brain, has got a full-time job keeping us alive. So the senses are the input channels. The brain is in this dark, silent box called the skull, using our senses to try and figure out what the hell is going on in the outside world to see if we're in danger or not. And so sound is obviously a big part of that, because it's 360 safety security system, because your eyes can see what's going on there, but your ears can see anything coming behind you as well. So sounds that the brain perceive as potentially dangerous will have a different impact on our autonomic nervous system and our response than sounds that the brain perceives as probably safe.
Mhm.
So loud, fast sounds that mimic the sound of a herd of buffalo coming towards you, or a rock fall, or a storm, or a neighbouring tribe coming to attack you. That's going to activate the fight or flight response and that kind of high adrenaline rush response. Whereas sounds of, calm, gentle sounds are the opposite. Let the parasympathetic nervous system kick in, calm, rest, digest, repair. And we know this. We don't have to be taught this even. If you're handed a baby, you don't if you want to calm that baby, you don't swing it around wildly, screaming "bat out of hell" "I'm a
Uh-huh.
bat out of hell."
Yeah.
You just wouldn't do that. You know that you have to be gentle, calming, soothing sounds. So we're born with this understanding of music, and the music industry and Hollywood, have understood how how different sounds have different effects on the brain, and they have wonderfully exploited that biological system
Mm-hmm.
in a myriad of different ways to produce a lot of incredible content.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you about biohacking, and there's so much to talk about. But first of all, I want to just get really clear on the definition of what it is that we're trying to biohack. Like, how do we define that? Like, what's the difference between health span and lifespan, for example? Because I have no idea.
Right. So lifespan is the length of time that you're alive. So it starts when you're born, ends when you die. Health span is the length of time that you are living in good health, right? So health span ends when you are diagnosed with some kind of illness that can't be cured. So it could be, that could be just a high blood pressure. That could be a, a, a rheumatic condition, or something that is really impacting. You no longer have that banner of, yes, there is nothing wrong here. Something has gone wrong, and over the years, our lifespan has increased dramatically because of advances in medical science and pharmaceuticals and everything. But our health span has not, we now live often decades of poor health at the end of our life, which isn't ideal, um, because who wants to live longer in poor health? And so the push right now within the longevity field is to understand how we can help people extend health span. I'm not even that obsessed anymore about lifespan, because my mission, like even 6-7 years ago when I started this more recent research journey, I wanted to live to 100. Right, that because I'm competitive. I'm from a sports science background. It's like, right, I want the birthday card from the king. It's like the gold medal. It's like, yeah, I did it. Whereas over the last year, I've really started. I've lost, a very good school friend, very late diagnosis of cancer. Someone else has got ill. I've lost my mum more recently. It's like, and with different illnesses, and I'm looking at it in a completely different way. That I don't want to live to 100 if I'm not in good health from 70. You know, 30 years of being around and not being able to live life in the way you want it. Some people might want to do that. Personally, I don't. So I'm very much focused on how to extend my health span by removing as many potential negative influences as possible, and also focusing on joy span, or whatever we want to call it, of making sure that I'm having the most amazing time right now for as many years as I possibly can, doing, not being too restrictive over what you can do and what you can't do, and just being sensible about it and trying to enjoy life and not be working all the time and not going out and not seeing friends, which I have done that a lot over the years, because you get obsessed with your career, and then suddenly 10 years has gone past,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not the years in your life, it's the life in your years.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a nice
Exactly.
quote.
And with the biohacking term, it's become huge on the airwaves on social media especially since the pandemic. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of biohacking sort of celebrities have emerged. But when I was shown music as a biohack 30 years ago in that visit to the SEAL base, it was a very simple concept. The ears lead to the brain, and you also, sound also, the input channel is through the skin. So sound is vibration, so you're experiencing sound through the skin and the ears, which is why music festivals and stuff like that is so powerful as well, because you're getting that multi-sensory input. But I see biohacks, and the way I use them, I'm looking at the natural sort of biohacks: sound, light, temperature, food, you know, the simple stuff that has an impact on the underlying biology, which is what you're trying to impact. It's like you're doing something that taps into the underlying biology and produces some sort of result. Whereas
Mhm.
at the other end of the scale, you've got the Brian Johnsons and the extreme biohacking and uh, various devices and implants and pharmaceutical interventions and stuff like that, which isn't realistic for the majority of people, either because it's way too much effort to continue for a lifetime, or it's too expensive. Whereas at the natural end of biohacking, make sure you go outside and get daylight. Make sure you're drinking water. It's simple, obvious, common sense stuff.
Mhm. Because on one hand, it seems like we have more solutions than ever, but then on the other, I wonder if we only need these solutions because modern life isn't working for us.
Mm.
Our bodies haven't evolved for the systems around us that have kind of been developed since the Industrial Revolution. Are modern habits contributing to us aging badly?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the contributing factors. We're indoors too much. We are eating food that wasn't designed for us. And I've got in a book that I published a couple of years ago that documented some of the research that I had done. I created this. I just listed this effing rule of thumb for food. If it with the F words, not the F word you're thinking of, but um, if it comes from a farm or a field, or if it's a fish, then eat it. If it comes from a factory, or if it's fast food, then stay away from it.
Mhm.
And I think that you can take that a step further and go organic if you can, but even if you can't, we know that consuming stuff that's been designed to sit on a shelf for a year and has got, if you list the ingredients on the back, which now is interesting because I keep saying to me, you must read the ingredients on the back. If you don't understand any of the words on the back of that packet or that jar, then you should not be buying it. But now I've found, as I'm getting older, I can't read the bloody ingredients on the back of the jar because they're so small. I have to take a photograph of it and then,
Mhm.
out of
Yeah.
interest, say, right, what exactly is in here? So it's interesting that as you age, the number one um, risk factor for health is age, right? So as you get older, you are more at risk
Mhm.
of diseases. And so as you get older, you should be more concerned about what you're eating, and yet you can't read it because your eyesight's
Yeah.
failing. And so it's like this.
Stuck in the matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I feel like we're trying to, we get so much conflicting information and we're almost trying to dodge, pitfalls at every kind of corner. Is it possible to live in the modern world without damaging our health?
Yeah, definitely. So I started this experiment on myself, an N of one, in 2020. January 2020, I cancelled my gym membership and did a forensic analysis of my daily routine. Um, and and found 48 things that I did during a typical day that were probably negatively impacting my health. So things like the time you get up, the time you go outside, the time I was eating, what I was eating, but also things like where I was parking in the station car park, entering the escalators on the underground on the right-hand side instead of the left-hand side. So I was standing on the escalators instead of walking up that
Right.
steep,
Mhm.
little tiny little things that are so automated that I don't even think about any of those things. And when I listed, there were 48 things, that could be slightly adjusted, like with that escalator example, now I automatically, it took ages to change that habit because you're just in, you just automatically go and stand on the right because you've done it for so long. Took ages to change that, but now I automatically go on the left and walk all the way up, and my legs are burning like hell as I get to the top of it. But that's really good, really good exercise. So I think that number one, to survive in this world, you really need to have a basic understanding, and this is not like, you don't have to get deep into the geekiness of the wellness and biohacking world now, which is so detailed. You need to have a basic understanding or acknowledge the fact that everything around us is having a negative impact, pretty much at some level, from the lights we're exposed to the air we're breathing, everything. But we don't want to all go and live on some remote island and go off grid and make our own clothes from, straw and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
We enjoy the world that we've invented. So I think having that awareness of, okay, I need to just be aware of every trigger point that I can remove, then I should try and remove that. And if I can't remove them, I should just focus on the basic common sense pillars of health, which is plenty of sleep, lots of water, only eating foods and drinks that have been made by the Mother Nature, that we are designed over hundreds of thousands of, million. A lot of our circuits are millions of years old. We're not going to change them. So just making sure you're not sitting down all day. Trying to carry your bags, walk instead of drive wherever you can. Active travel is a big, simple thing that we can do now, where it's like taking that choice to either walk to the next bus stop or walk to the next tube station, or just simple things that can be embedded into daily life to offset the damage of
Mhm.
of the stuff that we've invented.
Mhm.
Because otherwise you could drive yourself mad with this,
Oh,
of
yeah.
of getting so paranoid about it, and not eating this and not eating that. If I go to a restaurant or if I go to a hotel and I look on the menu and there's really nothing that is truly healthy on there, I'm not going to not eat. I'll just eat something, and
Mhm.
then that's this. I'm not going to fall over and expire.
Yeah.
It's and it's becoming easier because the world is changing. The kind of, when you look at menus now, they're very, very different than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And so actually one question I was going to ask you, do you feel like the wellness craze has gone too far? Like it's so difficult, like you preach fasting, for example, but then I'm not sure if I should fast all month round as a woman. I love cold water swimming. Apparently that's bad at times of the month. Like, have we reached peak wellness, if you
Mm.
will?
Mm. And then coffee's bad or coffee's good,
Uh-huh.
or high intensity exercise is good, and then someone else says it's,
Mhm.
it's so confusing. And I think it's important to remember that a lot of what you're looking at is content.
Mhm.
So wellness experts who want to be celebrity, who are trying to build a profile, whether it's because they want the publishing deal or they want the sponsorship, or that is how they're earning their living. They have to feed the algorithm, and once you get into that trap, you're feeding a beast. You need more and more content. What am I going to talk about on this post? What am I going to talk about today? What am I going to, I have loads of emails and stuff from media saying, "Oh, we're running some articles. Have you got any ideas for articles?" Because it's a lot to be punting out content continuously. There is going to be contradictions inevitably, because they're having to explore so many different angles to be able to keep producing content. I think it's important to remember that you are consuming content, and to keep going back to the same things. It's like, am I going to bed early enough? Am I spending enough time with my family? Am I breathing and just allowing myself to just go for a walk, surrounded by a bit of nature?
Mm.
The obvious things, with fasting is an interesting one, because obesity and weight management is a serious problem in our society. It's crippling the health services. It's crippling the economy, and it's driven largely by the fact that we've got these dopamine fueled reward pathways for going and searching for food and eating food, in a world where now we're surrounded by food, and it's most of us is poisoning us to a certain extent. So with fasting, my personal take on this is that when I started doing the experiment on myself, and I had been a gym goer for many decades and still putting on weight as I got into my 40s, you can't outrun a bad diet. You can't outrun the fact that you're eating way too many calories. And for me, fasting and intermittent fasting, it was a very simple way for me to reduce the amount of calories I ate. And I don't do it all the time, and I don't tell everyone to do it all the time. I think if you've had a period of excess where you've started putting on weight, and this is why it's important to become friends with your scales in your bathroom, because if you know when your weight is going up and down, it's much easier to understand how to control it. I'll reinstate a bit of intermittent fasting, delay my breakfast or not have dinner or something like that until those pounds get shaved off, and then I won't be so militant about
Hmm.
it from that point on. Because we are designed to last a long time without food. Because food used to be scarce, you had to go and look for it. It wasn't an app
Hmm.
where it was just delivered to you. We had to go and look. We're capable of existing without food.
Mm. Well, there's a couple of things I want to pick up on. First of all, you say you can't outrun a bad diet. And then you've also said that you did an experiment where you stopped going to the gym, which is not what you expect to hear from a biohacking expert.
Mm.
I know you said in the past even, that diet and fitness wasn't the kind of solution that we were promised.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So let me just say why I stopped going to the gym. So, as part of my research, I wanted to understand not everyone can afford a gym membership, right? And not everyone has the time. We're living in overwhelm. Many people are living in perpetual overwhelm. So the idea of paying for a gym membership and then around your ridiculously busy work schedule and family schedule, you have to somehow carve out time to go to a gym isn't realistic for a lot of people. So I wanted to see what other solutions there could be within a routine that didn't involve that to try and, can you be healthy and not have to spend money? So that's why I did that. And what happened to my body personally in that experiment is that my cardiovascular capacity was fine because I was building active travel into my day. I was carrying things. I was just doing stuff within my day, and I lost weight because I changed the way I ate. However, I am now a lot softer.
Mhm.
My muscle definition disappeared, and I think that you do need. Now I play squash at the local health club. I have to do weight training at the club because I can't do that at home.
Mhm.
Where I've kind of ended up with the research, and the reason that I started the research, as we're here and we can dig into the detail of it, let me tell you the
Yeah, please.
details, because I believed in the 1990s, before you were born,
No,
I'm
it wasn't.
sure.
It wasn't before I was born.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
But thank you. I'll take it. Yeah.
So I believed, and so did all my colleagues, that by telling everyone to eat fruits and vegetables and go to the gym, do exercise, we were going to produce healthy nations,
Mhm.
right? And that was in the early 90s, and all the scientific evidence pointed to that. It wasn't just some myth, The sport and exercise science world was growing. All of this evidence was coming out of various research studies out of the universities. It clearly is a fact that if you do all of these things, then this happens positively to your health. Then I set up a health club chain, successful health club chain. I set up an NHS GP referral service in the 90s, connecting patients with fitness instructors, and really totally believed in this. And then at the end of the 1990s, my dad died in a hotel room,
I'm sorry.
a heart attack, celebrating his 65th birthday, his retirement with my mum down in Torquay. After years of obesity related illnesses, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and an inability to stick with any of the recommendations that I was giving him as the sport and exercise
Mhm.
expert, and his GP was also giving him the same recommendations, and she was also overweight, and it's, and so I drifted out of that world because I just could already see that it's an incredible business model, right? To this day, we've brainwashed everyone into thinking that you've got to join the gym. They sign up usually in January, and then hardly ever go, but are too guilty to cancel the gym the direct debit. So they keep paying the money until they eventually. And so in 2018, I was working with the NHS, helping them on a dementia strategy for the first dementia village that was being built. And it brought me back into that kind of NHS world. And I plotted 50 years of diet and fitness revenues, which over 50 years grew. And then on the same 50-year timeline, I plotted average waistline size, which also grew. And on the same 50 years, I plotted rates of mental and physical illnesses, which also grew. So over 50 years, as the diet, fitness and wellness industry has grown, the scale of the health crisis has grown. And yet we are still giving people the same recommendations that we were in the 1990s when they clearly don't work, right? Because people are receiving all of these recommendations and even more recommendations than ever now because of the colossal noise of all the content that's out there. And yet they cannot embed sustained changes to their daily routines. And just doing something for a little while does not change your future health outcome. You have to make permanent, lifelong changes to your behavior.
And that's really difficult. So what you're saying is diet and fitness isn't the solution we were promised because people find it too hard to stick to a habit.
Yeah, I mean, we're giving people recommendations, but we're not giving them the missing ingredient, which the end, the final outcome of this research journey for me is that it spat out the end of all of this investigation that the brain, there's a process in the brain called long-term potentiation, which is the neuroplasticity effect. But if you think of, my hand as a brain cell, and the palm of my hand is the cell body, and at one end, my fingers are projections that are called dendrites, and at the other end, you've got projection, the axon. When you're repeating a behavior, there are structural changes to the brain cells where molecules are transported from the cell body and placed on the outer membrane of the dendrite. So every time you're repeating a behavior, the more and more you repeat a behavior, the more of these changes you're making and putting these receptors on the outer membrane. And this makes the brain cell more capable of receiving the neurochemicals and the neurotransmitters that are being sent from the brain cell next to it. And this is how brain cells and networks of brain cells, networks of neurons get wired together to form an ongoing behavior. But the problem is that it's slow.
Yeah.
Biology is slow. And if I wanted to plant a rose in my garden, I could go on, get it on Amazon, be delivered tomorrow. But then I would have to plant it in my border and outside. And as soon as I put it in the earth, the root network wouldn't suddenly explode out of the bottom of it. It takes ages for those projections and for those roots to grow out. And the same with this neural, this biological long-term potentiation effect in the brain. You have to connect all of these, tons of neurons that are involved in this habit. And unless you're doing that habit, preferably daily for months, that process doesn't reach a point where it's stabilized. And so then if you stop doing the habit, a reverse process called long-term depression happens, where the receptors start getting moved from the outer membranes and transported back into the cell body. So the brain cells become less able to be connected with each other. So people are constantly going through this, starting to connect the network of brain cells, and then, oh no, they've stopped too soon. And what came out of the final output of the research is it would have saved me hundreds of thousands of pounds, really, if we'd landed on this obvious thing from the beginning, is that if you give someone a human coach, then they last longer. And if they last longer with their effort, they're more likely to reach a point where those brain cells are connected, and they will carry on doing that new habit as their default behavior in their lifetime. But over the years, giving everyone a human coach has been too expensive.
Lots of points to pick up on. As I heard you talking, I identify with the person that can't stick to a habit and then berates themselves about it.
Mm.
And it's so interesting that that actually changes the neurons in your brain from what I'm listening to. But also, I did think, when you say we know that diet and exercise has like good results, but the reason that it's not the solution that we promise is because you can't stick to a habit.
Mhm.
And then part of me just feels, I'm quite a competitive person too. Is there a sadness that we're just giving up trying to stick to the habits? While I love the idea of being kinder to yourself, like isn't there any other ways? And I don't know if that's the kind of like capitalist thinking that we can like manipulate ourselves into really sticking with that habit, you know?
Mm. Yeah, the whole like gamification approach,
Mhm.
and but I think that what I'm trying to do with the preventative health sector now, and I'm collaborating with a lot of the leading names in this field now, which is amazing that that they're listening and they're agreeing, is that we think that the coaching model needs to be changed, because over the decades, the typical coaching model is that you go to a gym and you get an induction, and if you can afford it, you might sign up for some personal training to get you going. But basically, it's once a week, and then in between, you're just thrown back into your daily lifestyle, right? And that's not how the brain works. You need to try and commit to something every day. So it might be, right, I'm going to do 10,000 steps or 7,000 steps or whatever, or I'm going to use the stairs instead of the lift or whatever it is. This is my commitment that every day I'm going to try and do this in my daily routine, as well as being in the gym with the coach on the
Mhm.
Wednesday. So what I piloted last year was to try and measure what the minimum effective dose of human support is. So how much human support do you have to give someone really for them to continue? And the outcome of that was, firstly, it was a lot less than I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
It
how
was
how how much is
it
it?
was it was basically me sending everyone individually in as a private chat, a check-in message on WhatsApp.
Mhm.
So I would show up for them every day. So they'd picked a habit to work on, and I'd show up for them every day with a video or a little photograph with a little message saying, "Oh God, busy day today. Been doing a podcast with Georgia. Did you do your habit today?" And they just replied with a thumbs up if they did it, and a heart if they didn't, but their heart's still in it, and they'll try again tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, so they're both positive answers, which is nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to keep the
Mhm.
engagement, trying to keep this thing front of mind. And when you explain to people how the brain forms habits and they understand why this daily check in process is so important in trying to keep this thing going long enough for these neurons to connect. And so the coaching model should really be that if you have whether it's a nutrition program you're on or whatever it is, doesn't really matter what the habit is, that alongside that weekly face-to-face session, that you have these daily check-ins
Mhm.
with your coach, because it's so simple to do, and and it can make that huge difference. And people think that they've got weak willpower, and oh, I'm not motivated enough. It's like we don't have these motivational pathways for the types of stuff that we're doing, because we didn't used to have to go to the gym.
Mhm.
We probably had to walk around looking for food.
Yeah.
We got a lot of activity automatically, so we didn't have to evolve those motivational pathways for going to the gym. You have to make yourself do it. And
Mm.
I think when you look at people who are in the gym and they're working there, they're paid. They've got an extrinsic factor, motivational factor. They have money. So with the daily check-ins, we give people so we built a platform basically. So behavior change providers can now do this easily. They send one daily message and it goes individually to everyone and then captures their responses. But the people get a weekly check-in score. So you're starting to kind of gamify
Yeah.
that that behavior.
Bit of positive social pressure and also that competitive nature of
Yeah,
like you want to
yeah,
beat your score.
yeah.
Also, what I heard from you is even if you haven't managed to do your processes or tools, you still give a positive response. And also, when I was reading the research that the reason that diet and fitness isn't working is because we simply can't stick to habits because we haven't evolved that way. It made me feel a lot more compassion for myself.
Mm.
Like, I slept through my 7 a.m. gym class the other day and I was really hard on myself. And then I thought, okay, we're not wired to act in this way and we're just trying to do our best in this modern world.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you think compassion for yourself is an important ingredient for health.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that we're throwing a lot of guilt onto people and a lot of shame onto people because of the health crisis and the firstly genetically, I am able to put on weight very quickly. And clearly my dad was as well. And it's important to acknowledge that some people can get away with drinking a ton of energy drinks and eating crap food, and someone else will be really harmed by that because genetically they just are different. And when it comes to the motivational habit formation thing, most people are not told how the brain forms habits. So if you don't understand that there are literally structural changes that biologically have to happen between brain cells to connect them all up so that they're strongly connected, it makes much more sense to people then that just checking in to say that, oh, it's a heart today because I didn't manage it today, because you're not going to manage it every day, right? It's this reality. But even by checking in and engaging with your human coach with the heart, you've thought through that process. So you're sending a trace around that behavior by even thinking and visualizing about the fact that you haven't done that behavior, to keep that behavior at the forefront of your mind. Because for many people, on a Monday they'll decide what habit they're going to be working on. By Thursday they've forgotten what that
Mhm.
habit was. It's like, oh yeah, I was going to be doing vitamin D spray. Yeah, where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah, and then we're beating ourselves up. Well, it's difficult because what might work for your best mate might not work for you
Yeah,
genetically. And I
yeah,
guess that leads on quite nicely to getting into the technology behind it. Well, look, I work in technology and I love data. There is still a point to using some of the great technology advances that we've made in health, right? Like,
yeah.
wearables are still pretty useful, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are compared to when I first entered the sector in the early 90s, and the polar heart rate monitors were they were the new technology, and that was incredible, being able to get real time heart rate data, and then the fat percentage machines that we started using to measure body composition, so we didn't have to use the calipers and get people's manhandling their fat percentage. It's from there. It's amazing now how much information we can get so easily with consumer devices as well, not medical devices or industry, but it's gone mainstream. Uh, Easy on your watch, so how the timepiece has become a hugely important channel to understanding what's going on in your body, through to blood glucose monitoring, where you can see exactly what is happening in real time to your blood glucose levels when you're having different types of foods, and understanding how you're responding to those. That was like science fiction 30 years ago when I entered this sector. And so even though firstly, the data, some people might find that amount of data it's too overwhelming, and they cannot usefully use it to produce sustainable changes in their everyday life. But for the coaches they're working with, it gives them valuable insights that can help in their recommendations, definitely, whether it's the healthcare professional or the instructor in the gym. But in addition to that, you've got the educational value of these devices, because most people have a very limited understanding of how the body works. And we are, when we're born, we're presented with this gift of the most incredible machine in the universe, the human body. It's amazing. And yet we're never told how it works, how to look after it, how it goes wrong. We're blundering around life surrounded by things that are having negative effects on that underlying evolutionary biology. And these devices can really help teach you how your body works. When you start to see how things that you've done the day before, how they're impacting your scores the day after, and how the incredible impact a good night's sleep can have, and how stress is starting to build, and how different breathing techniques can help reduce that, and the effect on heart rate variability is, it's a it's a real amazing training tool for starting to understand how you, as that individual human, are being affected by the routines that you have built. Because most of the habits that we have, we didn't ask for. They were dropped on us from a height because of the where the environment that we were surrounded by, and we unwittingly formed these habits. Right? We didn't ask for them. They just happened because repeat behavior forms habits. So I think it's a really exciting time because this technology has now become so affordable. I mean, it's still, you know, the definition of affordable is
Relative.
complex. It's complex, but but pricing is going down, so that's a good thing because the more widespread access we can give of these kind of devices, then I think the more and when it comes to health literacy and knowledge about how the body works and why you should choose that on the menu instead of that on the menu, there's going to be more understanding around it. Whereas before it was just, very simplistic terminology and confusing terminology for decades. It's like, oh no, fat's bad, don't eat fat. That was the incorrect myth that was out there for decades. And now there is undeniable scientific and data-led insights that show exactly what happens when you eat different types of foods. So we're in a much better place to be able to look after ourselves because of that increased
Hmm.
awareness.
I suppose it's like, if you give everyone a paintbrush, they're not going to become an artist. If you give everyone the health tracking ability, not everyone's going to be super interested in it or use that data to change their behavior. But if you do have the propensity to do that, this is a great time
Yeah.
to make the positive changes personalized to you because of the technology
Yeah.
that we have.
Yeah. But so going back to the artist, right? If you give everyone a paintbrush, not everyone is going to become an artist, but everyone will can paint, and the health benefits of painting are right. So there is a value, even if your skill level and the level of your ability of how you're using those tools is lower. Even low benefit, even small benefit is benefit, isn't it? So
Hmm.
even if you're just useless at painting, the act of painting is very beneficial from a calming the nervous system. And same with the wearables. You might not be taking that data and making some extreme and exceptional choices based on it, but even looking at it and having a basic awareness of it is going to bring a value.
And knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Hmm.
Exactly. So over the last 5 years, I've bought pretty much every gadget under the sun that came out. And most of those companies have now gone into administration
Yeah.
and no longer exist. So there's been a lot of interesting R&D that's happened in the health tech space and the wearables. And the most important thing to remember about all of these is that it's really interesting. So as a geek, I am totally into all of this stuff. I want to know, last night, I got the best night's sleep last night than I have for months,
Hmm.
because I've been in a traumatic family event, health event, and looking at the data when I was looking at it this morning and looking back at all of the different, I find that really, 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 really interesting. But what's most important, and this is the same, this is true with a lot of people, clients that I talk to, is that we've all got these gadgets now, and looking at the the data and I say, oh, so when it says, oh, don't do this today or do that today, do you change your routine? And they're like, no. If I've got a squash match or a tennis match and it says, oh, you should take it easy today, do I phone and cancel the match? It's like, no, I don't. If I've had poor sleep or if I've gotten to bed, do I go to bed earlier or do I no, because my routine is already locked in that day. I can't then say, oh, sorry, everyone, I'm cancelling it because So we're given a lot of information, but unless you're then actively using that information to make changes to your behavior, how much value is it delivering to your health, really?
Yeah. But how can you? Exactly. We've got all this data. I've been thinking about that. AI gives us all this data about our own health, but then we almost need to use like behavioral science to trick ourselves into implementing it into our everyday lives. And is there a way to do that?
Because then we come back to the same thing. It's like, oh, well,
Mhm.
how does the brain form habits? Through repetition. How do you
Mhm.
keep going long enough for that repetition to reach a stabilized, level of long-term potentiation? Having a human coach.
Mm.
Nothing beats that. And over the last decade, we've all lurched towards digital health because we thought, well, it's too expensive to give everyone a human coach, so we'll give everyone an app.
Mhm.
But we now know, I was in LA Tech Week last October. The investment funds there very vocal about the fact they now consider us to be in app fatigue era. This is the app fatigue era because we are bombarded by digital notifications constantly. It's so easy to just dismiss a tech app, whether it's even if it's AI that sounds really like a human, well, you still know it's not human. And so there's no
Mhm.
social obligation, guilt around ignoring that human. Whereas if your coach sends you a message, say, right, I'm showing up for you again today because we've got this partnership and my end of the partnership is that I will show up for you every day with this check-in message, and your end of the partnership is that you'll respond with a thumbs up or a heart, say if you've done it today or
Mhm.
not. And there is a guilt attached to that you don't get with digital tech. So the AI that we're using is supporting the human. So how can we use AI to capture look at the messages that are going out and the responses that are coming back, to look at the language to say, right, how can we use AI to draft suggested messaging for that coach? So I can't think of anything to write today. It's like, oh, well, AI says, how
Mhm.
about something along these lines? Because this has been in the news today, or this is the type of message that got really good response. Maybe use this sort of language, and to start making it easier for humans to send messages to keep this human connection going so that people
Mhm.
can maintain their habit efforts for longer.
Mhm. I hear what you're saying, and I do wonder in the age of AI if it will actually become so human-like that it might be able to help, people feel like they're talking to someone that's a bit more personalized and contextualized to them, but that's another question. But are you really saying that you, as a doctor wearing your Aura Ring, you don't use any of that data that you get to change your own behaviors?
Well, I mean, I already have changed my behaviors. So I guess it's not a typical example because I went through the research project of going through those 48 things that I identified in my daily routine, and over 5 years trying to adjust the starting with the most critical ones and then
Mhm.
trying to adjust those. So my routine is I don't do a lot of excessively damaging stuff very often.
Mhm. That's
Th
good.
you
Lucky,
know,
that's lucky.
boring
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
no, yeah.
Except when we got pretty crap gigs, of course, but,
Uh-huh.
to that, I honestly don't. I don't think that I don't look at my reading and think, "Oh gosh, I'll go and walk around the block because I haven't hit 10,000 steps
Yeah,
today."
and then I guess we start to become controlled by the devices that we're wearing. But, you test out every single kind of health tech on the market. You work in health tech. For the people that are listening and watching, if they just wanted to start tracking one element of their
Mm.
health, where would you suggest is the most helpful?
Well, the 3 pillars would be physical activity, what you're eating, and your sleep.
Mhm.
And people really underestimate the importance of sleep. And for me, uh, I've become a a sleep fan. You know, I I I didn't even really used to think about it as such a critical pillar, but when you're tired, you really make really shit decisions
Mhm.
around food and drink and whether you're going to walk or drive.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very different decision-making process when you're tired
Yeah.
than when you're refreshed
Yeah.
and revitalized. You make much clearer thought processes. You don't crave the same things. You know, there's a lot of research that shows that poor sleep is also leads to overeating and you crave the wrong foods the next day. And so if you're going to start somewhere, then going to bed earlier
Mhm.
and tracking, you know, how much deep sleep are you getting? What what is the quality of your sleep, not just the quantity of it, and nailing that. And then often the other stuff just then becomes easier because you're more energetic, so you're more active through the day because you're not sitting down because you're tired.
Mhm.
You're upright and you're moving around. You're just making better decisions around food, drink. You have a different experience when you're not tired.
Mhm. Yeah, okay, sleep is number 1, good to know because yeah, that does go out the window sometimes, doesn't it? Um, you're one of the sort of OGs of the biohacking scene, I think it's fair to say, and I'm hearing a lot of this about self-compassion, about you said that you quit the gym, but I feel like this term biohacking has been really claimed by the tech bros. It seems like, humans telling you to get up at 5 a.m. every day, and there's this culture of just being obsessed with health optimization, which seems really closely linked to productivity, and it feels quite masculine. And it's kind of this world of men that are obsessed with improving themselves.
Mm.
Why do you think that is? And what does biohacking mean to you?
Mm. Well, I think it is very male dominated, and I think that it's not surprising that that's happened because a lot of these protocols have come out of the kind of that military and male military
Mhm.
mindset, and also the guys are very good at promoting themselves and going out there and being a loud voice,
Mhm.
whether what they're saying is right or not. They're
Yeah.
very good at out there and
Yeah.
being it. And the women, us, we're just not as. I have no desire to be out, but my social media content is very few and far between because it's just I just don't have that mindset. And I think that in the investment world, we were saying that female founders in the health tech space and male founders in the health tech space and how they value their company valuations at the
Mhm.
startup level. It's
Yeah.
really interesting how the male startup founders are their valuations are way higher than
Mhm.
where the female founders are valuing it when you're pre-revenue, when you're
Mhm.
just saying, yeah, my company's worth this, but you
Mhm.
have got nothing, no sales to base that on. So there's an interesting mindset around that. But I think that the biohacking as a term as well has become almost like that challenge.
Yeah.
It's kind of that masculine even in the female setting, it's a kind of like it's the masculine side of our femininity that is. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
It's like
it's
that
like
challenge.
you versus the man in the mirror is like
Yeah,
what it says to
yeah,
me. And also, I guess if it's men shouting loudly about biohacking online, it also means that we're going to get most information about how to look after yourself as a man, which means, women might not be able to integrate it into their lives in the most effective way. And it might not, lead to the best results. But also, I wonder if there's something not less sexy, but like of a woman shouting really loudly to be nicer to yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's at odds, doesn't it?
yeah,
I suppose
yeah,
in the society that we live in. But
yeah,
really, is that what we need?
yeah. And I think the best expert when it comes to your health is you, because if you feel crap, and really deep down, you know the things in your daily routine that are resulting in you feeling crappy. And you know that when you make certain changes, it makes a difference, whether it's sleep for one person, or it might be intermittent fasting for another person, or for someone else that doesn't work, or
Mhm.
someone might really enjoy being vegan, and for someone else that doesn't work, so they'll do a different. There are so many different ways to look at it that I encourage people to just experiment with different things within their routine that are achievable, because there's no point picking a really high intensity, high effort, expensive thing that you can't afford to continue, or it's so hard that you just don't continue it, or because the things that are going to impact your future health outcome are the things that you're doing every single day. And by having a real forensic look at the tiny little habits that are already built into your routine to the point that they're so automated you don't even notice them, then I think you can start making some obvious choices that don't need a guru, whether they're a male or a female, with
Yeah.
million followers or whatever, blah de blah.
Well, we all just wanna be told what to do, don't we? And that seems
Well, we all
easier.
want the shortcuts, right? But
Yeah.
there are no shortcuts, because the brain takes ages to wire the neurons together. You need repeat behavior over a very prolonged period. And the best advice that I now always give everyone is pick one habit, not 10, because even wiring one simple habit will take you months of daily effort. And then partner up with a buddy. If you can't afford a coach, doesn't matter. Find a friend or a colleague or a neighbor or family or whoever that also wants to change one habit. And it doesn't have to be the same habit as you, but they just want to change one habit, and check in with each other every day. Just decide who's going to be the accountability partner, and just check in with each other every day. Have you done the habit today?
Mhm.
Yes, I've done it. No, I haven't. But my heart's still in the mission. We will reconvene in this WhatsApp chat tomorrow, and we will
Mhm.
check in again tomorrow.
We will reconvene. So let's talk about the future then. Okay, that's a great bit of advice to leave people with. But what's your vision for the next 5 to 10 years? How do you think tech and psychology, because really that's kind of what we're talking about, right, is going to co evolve? And what role do you think engineers, the people making their technology, are going to play in that?
Interestingly, I think that the rise in tech and the rise in AI is going to result in pushing humans back to the forefront, especially in the health world, because they were pushed into the background because we thought digital health was the future. But when you look at the retention rates of, you download an app for this and you start doing it, and then it's asking you to put in everything you've eaten, and it's just like a hassle, and it can't be bothered. And then you forget about it. It's lost on some screen on your phone, on your smartphone. And so I think that humans are going to come back at the forefront. But the reason that they're able to do that is because we're going to be able to create these human connections at scale by using tech. So things like, WhatsApp has such a massive open rate that why send someone to an app when they're already in WhatsApp,
Mhm.
already
Mhm.
responding to various things? They're already there.
Mhm.
So stuff like that, and gathering immense amounts of data so that you can then start to use that data to think about the content, to empower that human coach to get even more engagement with that person. How can you keep that engagement going as long as possible with that human, so that their brain is building those connections over months and months and months and months? And that's been the challenge of the fitness sector and the diet sector for uh, generations. Retention, people
Mhm.
fizzle out. It's a repeat model. People sign up
Mhm.
and then they fizzle out.
Mhm.
So I think that the ability to use tech and AI to facilitate those human to human connections, but with content and assisting the human coach through that the insights that can be obtained, especially through AI, of looking at analyzing the language, and for that person with personalization. Because what was interesting with the pilots that we did, trying to measure the minimum effective dose of human support, it was surprising how little it had to be. It was just basically a high five, isn't it? It's like checking in. Did you do it today? Whether it's with a video message or a photo. But it didn't have to be personalised. And I was really surprised by that. But it didn't, because they knew the purpose of that check-in message was to just check in, high five, right, here we are. So the content of the message was kind of irrelevant. It didn't have to say, hi, Georgia, how are you today? Blah, blah, blah. And it didn't have to be, the content didn't have to be relevant to the habit that they were working on. In fact, some of the most engagement was from when I was just talking about my daily life. It's like, oh, God, I'm late with the check-in message today because I had to take my dog to the vet. It's been a really busy day. Did you do your habit today? Yes or no?
Okay.
And so AI's ability to then, across with the platform we've built, lots of behavior change companies deploying messaging like that. We're gathering a lot of data that can then see how different types of people respond to different types of language, different types of tone of messaging. So to be able to adjust, so the coach writes a message, but then you could adjust that language slightly for the person that's receiving it.
Sounds like people just want to really feel cared for. They want a bit of social pressure, but also were you kind of alluding to some habit stacking things, like do things that you can tack on to what you're already doing, like you're already in WhatsApp or you're already doing this. What else? Walk up the stairs, for example. Okay, wow. Well, that's been so much to think about. Thank you so much for sharing all your brilliant
overwhelm,
insights.
I hope, because that's what we're trying to avoid in this world now.
Especially in the age of wellness.
Yes.
So have a bit of compassion, and I feel like taking the first step is the right way forward.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.